going on? It's Dave Cohen Dust here, Fantasy Smack Talk. Before we get into the show, got to give a shout out to Brian here in Virginia. You won the pick'em. If Philip Rivers wasn't an idiot, I would have had a chance to beat you. But you won. He's an idiot. Congratulations. T-shirt, box break. You're going to be entered into that. I am Yoda. Go ahead.
It's buy low, sell high time. We love doing these segments. Trade deadline is approaching. Who do you buy low on? Who do you sell high on? A few running backs that we like as buy lows. All these guys are coming off of injuries. We got Blunt, we got Hillis, and we got Javid Best.
Hey, shocker with that one.
We think all three of these guys obviously still have a lot of potential of coming back and having decent seasons. I mean, obviously Hillis has been the biggest disappointment out of these three. But if you can get him cheap right now, if you're up towards the top of the rankings and you're in a position to take a gamble, we love the move.
Absolutely. And the next guy, if you own this guy, you're going to totally hate on the fact we're saying this. But it's Chris Johnson. And here's the deal. A lot of the other fantasy shows out there are saying there's no way you can trade for this guy. Don't touch him. Don't send anything. Here's the deal. If you can send a really low ball offer and get him, you might as well do it. The way to look at it, too, is if the team that owns him has Johnson on the bench this week, which they probably do, and they have a subpar running back in over him, that's when you target him. Try to get him on the cheap right now, and we're talking really cheap.
I mean, here's how I like to look at it. If you can trade a guy that's currently on your bench, doesn't necessarily start for you, but does have value, and get Chris Johnson in return, and then just put Chris Johnson on your bench, obviously he has a bigger upside than
that ceiling's
whoever
much,
is on
much
your bench.
higher. You gotta love that.
It's still a gamble, but it's not a bad one. All right, we got three receivers for you, and that's Mike Williams, Miles Austin, and Roddy White. All three of these guys, huge talents, haven't really done a whole lot this year, but we fully expect them to turn things around and have good years. Three receivers that we really like for cheap if you can get them.
Absolutely.
All right. Sell high. I'm talking about those too.
Yes.
All right, we got two big names to start off. First one, Fred Jackson.
I agree.
And then Wes Welker.
I don't agree. He hates Wes Welker.
Oh, you'll agree in a second. All right, so Fred Jackson, big name guy, top 5 guy as of right now. You won't necessarily be able to get top 5 value for him, but if you couple him with maybe just like one of your lesser receivers and maybe get an Arian Foster or get a Matt Forte, get a guy that you can just trust a little bit more, I think that would be a good move for you. Jackson is still somewhat of a question mark, even though he has been playing awesome. And then Wes Welker. I'm not saying Welker isn't going to have a good second half. I think he'll still probably be a top 10 receiver. But if you can get top 5 value for him right now, why not do it? If you can get Andre Johnson while he's still recovering from his injury, I like that. If you can get a Mike Wallace type guy, I would like that. Just look at Wes Welker's game log, though. It's slowly trending down back to earth.
Yes, when you start at like 50, it's going to start going down.
It's going down.
I take those guys as well. I say don't do anything stupid.
You'd agree.
Don't do anything stupid. All right, the next two guys we're going to talk about is Eric Decker and Nate Washington. Similar situations. They both have good high point totals for the year, which is huge because a lot of people only look at that. And they're both coming off big games, which is also a big help. But that said, we don't really love their situations. I mean, Decker, it's Tebow. I'm sorry. He's terrible. So Decker's value goes way down because Tebow's not that accurate. And he looks to be spreading it around already. Demaryius Thomas got looks and then Decker and so forth. So that's a tricky situation. And then Nate Washington. Listen, when Britt went down, I think it actually kind of hurt the guy. He's not a number 1 wide receiver, but he's facing top corners. So that's a tough situation going forward. Deal him if you can.
Next, we got Jackie Battle. I actually don't mind Jackie Battle. I think he's going to get majority of the carries on that offense, but he's coming off a big game. And in that game, if it wasn't for that one drive where he got like 50 yards and that touchdown, it would have been a really mediocre game. I just think it's a really good time to try to sell him. There's a lot of hype around him right now. And if you can get one of those 3 hurt guys for him that we were talking about earlier, and Best, Hillis, or Blunt, I think that's a great move right now.
Absolutely. And the last guy is Victor Cruz. Same thing. And those receivers we talked about, if you can get Cruz for him, love that. Especially the Miles Austin, Roddy White type. And Mike Williams, it's right around the same place. But either way, here's the deal with Victor Cruz. Mario Manning and Hakeem Nicks are still the 2 main targets. We always believed in Manningham. We still do. Cruz, you know what? We just don't feel this is going to keep up these big games where he's finding the end zone. He's the slot guy. It's official now. He's not in the wide receiver 1 and 2 sets. So Cruz is a big name, big highlight guy, which is key as well. And if you can get a very good, productive receiver for him, we say go ahead and make that trade. But he has played New England this week, so his numbers are probably going to go up again. So maybe after this week, you trade you some Victor Cruz.
Sell him even higher.
All right, let's get into those forum questions. The first one's from
Apparently, Brent can't say soul brethren.
Brotherhood. That was close enough. Screw it. Wants to know which quarterback to start. Either Castle versus Miami or Sanchez at Buffalo.
I really like Castle's matchup. Chiefs have been playing better lately, but Castle hasn't necessarily been putting up a lot of fantasy points even though they are playing better. I'm going Sanchez on this one. Buffalo gives up a lot of yards through the air as well. Sanchez has been more consistent. I like Sanchez just a little bit more.
Miami's terrible. Matt Castle.
It's a tough one. Next one, Dorm Sauce. Which receiver? I put this one in for you, Brent.
Right.
Hayward Bay versus Denver. Sidney Rice at Dallas or Jonathan Baldwin versus Miami.
I mean, come on. It's a softball right here. Gotta go Jonathan Baldwin. Obviously, though, I'm pretty biased this guy. I love him. He's a big receiver, big target. Breaston ain't the number 2 out there anymore. It's John Baldwin. It's very clear to me, at least. And
Rice is the safest pick because they're going to be playing from behind.
Rice is, and Hayward Bay you might be thinking about, and you know what, TJ Houshmandzadeh is not going to mean anything to his value. I just don't think Carson Palmer is going to be that good quite yet, so I'm saying go with my boy. All right, Robot Food wants to know which defense is the pick up and play for him, and is it either Oakland versus Timmy
Tebow
or Atlanta at Indy?
Yeah, this one is close because, we all saw what Tebow did last week. But I'm going with Atlanta. They're coming off their bye. Indy hasn't scored over 20 points only one time. They've only done it one time this year. So, Atlanta's, more than likely going to hold them at least into the teens as points totals go. And they should be able to force some turnovers. And like I said, coming off the bye, they're going to be fresh.
Side note, when they had Peyton Manning, they scored over 20 points every game but 2 last year. MVP?
MVP. It's time for them studs, and sleepers. My stud, I'm going with Roddy White. I picked him before as my stud, and he's let me down. But I'm excited about him this week, going up against Indy. They should have very easy time moving the ball through the air. Come on, Roddy, get things going. My dud, Matt Schaub, going up against Cleveland. Cleveland has a sneaky, really good pass D. They give up, I think they're top 5 as far as points given up for fantasy quarterbacks. So I think Schaub, decent, probably going to do decent, but I'm just really not expecting big things from him this week. And my sleepers, Mr. Timmy Tebow. I'm not going to say he played great last week. He looked awful, but it should be a lot easier in Oakland. And again, it's his rushing yards is what makes him a fantasy-worthy quarterback.
And it's his arm that makes him a terrible,
if you're in a bind, you got bye week problems, I'm just saying don't rule out Tebow. I'm not saying he's a must start or anything like that.
All right, my stud is Tony Romo at Seattle. Here's the deal. Tony Romo up and down all year. He was down last week. I'm sure the people in Dallas are freaking out. Is he really a good enough quarterback to start? When that happens, he blows up. Seattle, you can't run against. You pass, he's going to blow up. My dud is Anquan Bolden against the Steelers. Here's the deal. Bolden's had good 2 back-to-back games. He had a garbage touchdown in one of them, and Arizona couldn't stop high schoolers. So Bolden's he's playing the Steelers this week. I think he comes back to what he really is, and that's now he's just a glorified possession receiver that isn't that great with yards after catch, and that's why he was good in Arizona. And then my sleeper, big shock here, DeMarco Murray, slowly moving over just a little bit, make room. John Baldwin, love this guy, big receiver. His touchdown was an awesome touchdown. Plus, he was targeted 8 times. That was only 3 less than Bo, 5 more than Breaston last week. Love me some Baldwin.
All right,
Love him.
Let's get into Mike's picks. His stud, he's going with Eli Manning. Every quarterback has a good chance against the Patriots. Eli with that receiver core, even with Nix maybe being out, he should have a decent game. His dud, Chris Johnson, going up against the surprisingly good Bengals defense.
From a Bengals fan.
Yeah, well, anything that the Bengals do well is somewhat of a surprise. But the Bengals are tough. Chris Johnson hasn't been good, obviously. He's not liking Chris Johnson. Thinks he's borderline benchable in almost all situations. And his sleepers, Matt Castle against Miami. It is a good matchup, but like I was saying earlier, I'm a little scared about this one because Castle hasn't necessarily been putting up a lot of fancy points.
You seen John Baldwin? He's gonna be throwing just lobs.
It is a good matchup though. Castle could
Davis
have
on
Castle
Bo.
Could have a good
Baldwin
game.
gets some scrub.
He's a decent sleeper. So that's it for our Week 9 show. Good luck this week. If you got any questions for us, post them in the forums. They've been real active. We've been loving it. We've been answering as many as we can. I'm Dustin. This is Nameco. See you later. Can't believe I know you.